The stars looked peaceful through the observation window of the horizon's edge. Commander Jake Morrison had been watching them for the past hour, enjoying the quiet of deep space. His ship was a simple cargo vessel, carrying supplies between human colonies. It was boring work, but Jake liked boring. Boring meant safe. Boring meant no problems. The communication console beeped. Lisa Parker, his navigation officer, turned in her chair. "Commander, we're getting a priority transmission. It's coming from the Galactic Council." Jake walked over to her station. "The Council? They never contact individual ships. Put it through." The main screen flickered to life. A massive creature appeared, covered in dark scales and wearing elaborate armor. The Zethrak were one of the oldest species in the Council, known for their aggressive nature and powerful military. This particular Zethrak wore the insignia of an admiral. "Attention, human vessel," the alien said, its voice deep and threatening. "I am Admiral Zarthok of the Zethrak Dominion. This message is being broadcast to all human colonies and ships. The Zethrak Dominion hereby declares war on the human species." Jake felt his crew go still around him. Kevin Hayes, the systems engineer, stopped his work. Lisa's hands froze over her controls. They all stared at the screen. Zarthok continued, clearly enjoying himself. "The Dominion requires the 12 systems currently occupied by humanity. You have proven yourselves weak and passive during your 3,000 years in the Galactic Council. You never fight. You never argue. You simply exist, taking up valuable space. We have decided that space would be better used by a stronger species." The Admiral leaned forward, his reptilian eyes gleaming. "You have one standard cycle to evacuate all human worlds. Take your ships and leave. If you remain, we will remove you by force. This is not a negotiation. This is a statement of fact. The Zethrak Dominion has never lost a war. We have conquered 17 species. You will be the 18th. The transmission ended. The bridge of the horizon's edge was silent for a long moment. Then Lisa started laughing. It was quiet at first, then louder. Kevin joined her, shaking his head in disbelief. Soon the entire bridge crew was chuckling. Jake smiled, but he raised his hand for quiet. "All right, settle down. Lisa, send a priority message to Earth Command. Use the old codes, the ones we haven't touched in 3,000 years. Tell them the vacation is over." Lisa's fingers flew across her console. "Sending now, Commander. Should I use the full alert protocol?" "Yes. Every world needs to know. Kevin, start running diagnostics on our defensive systems. I know this ship is registered as a cargo hauler, but check everything." Kevin grinned. "Already on it, sir. The old girl still has teeth. They're just hidden under all this civilian paint." Jake returned to the observation window. The stars didn't look quite so peaceful anymore. "You know what's funny?" he said to no one in particular. "They actually think we forgot. 3,000 years of peace, and they think we forgot how to fight." Lisa finished her transmission and turned to face him. "My grandmother told me stories. She said her grandmother told them to her, all the way back. Every generation passes them down. The old ways, the old skills, just in case." "Everyone does that," Kevin added. "Every human kid learns the basics: history, tactics, weapons handling. We call it cultural education. The aliens think we're teaching art and music." He laughed again. "Well, we do teach art and music, but we teach other things too." Jake nodded. "Get me a line to the other human ships in this sector. I want a full count of who we have and what condition they're in." Over the next hour, reports started coming in from across human space. The Zethrak Declaration had reached everyone, and everywhere the response was the same. Humans were activating systems that hadn't been used in millennia. Old codes were being dusted off. Ancient facilities were coming online. On Earth, deep beneath the surface of the Pacific Ocean, Admiral Susan Blake walked through corridors that hadn't seen human presence in 3,000 years. The lights came on automatically as she passed, responding to her biometric signature. The base was old, but everything still worked. Humans built things to last. She reached the central command center and placed her hand on a scanner. The massive room came to life. Screens flickered on. Holographic displays activated. A three-dimensional map of human space appeared in the center of the room, showing all 12 colony worlds and hundreds of stations. Her second-in-command, Captain Greg Foster, appeared on one of the screens. "Admiral, all defense networks are responding. New Hope reports full activation. Freedom's Rest is coming online now. The others will follow within the hour." Susan nodded. "Good. What about the fleet?" "The civilian ships are already moving into position. Once we drop their disguises, we'll have over 2,000 combat-capable vessels. The actual warships are leaving their hiding spots now. Give us 6 hours and we'll have 5,000 ships ready for deployment." "And the ground forces?" Greg smiled. "Every colonist who volunteered for the militia is reporting to their stations. That's about 60% of our adult population. The Zethrak think we're farmers and miners. They're not wrong. But farmers and miners who know how to fight are still dangerous." Susan looked at the map of human space. 12 worlds, hundreds of stations, billions of people who had lived in peace for 3,000 years. Peace they had chosen. Peace they had worked hard to maintain. Peace they had enjoyed. But peace they had never been naive about. "Send a message to all commands," she said. "Tell them to prepare defensive positions, but do not engage unless fired upon first. The Zethrak want a war. Let's make sure they understand what that means." Back on the horizon's edge, Jake received confirmation that his message had reached Earth Command. The response was simple. "Acknowledged. Execute Protocol, Guardian. Defend all human assets. Rules of engagement. Return fire only. Make it count." Jake shared the message with his crew. Lisa stretched in her chair. "So we wait for them to make the first move?" "That's right. We're not the aggressors here. We never have been. But if they want to start something, we'll finish it." Kevin brought up a tactical display. "The Zethrak fleet will probably hit New Hope first. It's our newest colony, least defended looking. They'll think it's an easy target." "Let them think that," Jake said. "New Hope has the same defenses as every other human world. They just can't see them yet." The crew settled in to wait. Across human space, millions of people did the same. Civilians became soldiers. Cargo ships became warships. Defense platforms rose from oceans and emerged from mountains. Humanity had spent 3,000 years as peaceful members of the Galactic Council. That vacation was over now. And the galaxy was about to remember why humans had wanted peace in the first place, because they were very, very good at the alternative. The Zethrak invasion fleet arrived at New Hope exactly when their battle plan said they would. Admiral Zarthok watched the blue and green planet on his main screen with satisfaction. 300 warships surrounded him, the pride of the Zethrak military. Each ship carried enough firepower to level a city. Together they could crack a planet's crust. "Scan the planet," Zarthok ordered. "Show me what defenses these humans have." His tactical officer studied the readings. "Admiral, I'm detecting minimal defensive systems. A few orbital satellites, probably for communication. 3 civilian vessels in orbit, unarmed. The planet shows no military installations above ground." Zarthok laughed, a deep rumbling sound. "As expected. 3,000 years of peace has made them soft. They probably don't even remember how to build weapons. Prepare the first strike. Target their largest city. Once they see what we can do, they'll evacuate quickly." On the surface of New Hope, Lieutenant Danny Foster sat in a briefing room with 40 other pilots. The room was carved into solid rock, 2 miles beneath the surface. It had been there since the colony was founded, waiting for a day that might never come. That day had arrived. "All right, people, listen up," Captain Rachel Green said, standing at the front of the room. "The Zethrak fleet just entered orbit. 300 ships. They're big, they're confident, and they think we're helpless. Let's prove them wrong." Danny checked his flight suit. It fit perfectly, even though it had been manufactured 3,000 years ago. Human technology didn't age the way alien technology did. They built things to last forever. "What are we flying?" asked another pilot, a young woman named Sophie Wells. Rachel smiled. Mark 7 interceptors, old as dirt by our standards, but they'll do the job. Each one is faster than anything the Zethrak have. More maneuverable, too. Your weapons are kinetic cannons and plasma torpedoes. Simple, reliable, and extremely effective. Danny had trained for this his whole life. Every human did. While they went to school and learned regular subjects, they also learned combat. History lessons included detailed studies of ancient battles. Physical education included weapons handling. Mathematics involved ballistics and trajectory calculations. It was just part of being human. The Zethrak are about to fire on the surface, Rachel continued. When they do, the defense platforms will activate. That's your signal to launch. Remember your training. Stay in formation, protect each other, and make every shot count. Above them, in orbit, Zarthok gave the order. Fire. 100 missiles streaked toward New Hope's surface, aimed at the capital city of Harbor Point. Each missile carried a warhead powerful enough to destroy several city blocks. The Zethrak crew watched their screens, expecting to see explosions and devastation. Instead, they saw something impossible. The ocean moved. From beneath the waves around Harbor Point, massive structures began to rise. Water cascaded off them in enormous waterfalls. The platforms were huge, each one the size of a small city. They had been resting on the ocean floor, disguised as natural formations, covered in 3,000 years of marine growth, but they weren't natural. They were defense platforms, and they had just woken up. Point defense turrets swiveled into position. Targeting computers that had been dormant for millennia activated in microseconds. Energy shields flickered to life around the city. Every single Zethrak missile was intercepted. Not most of them, all of them. The sky above Harbor Point lit up with explosions as 100 missiles died before reaching their targets. Not one got through. On the Zethrak flagship, alarms started blaring. Admiral, massive energy signatures from the planet's surface. Counting 20, no 30, no 50 separate platforms. They just appeared from nowhere. Zarthok stared at his screen in disbelief. That's impossible. Our scans showed nothing. Where did they come from? Sir, they were underwater. They must have some kind of stealth technology. The ocean concealed them completely. Before Zarthok could respond, his tactical officer shouted another warning. Launch bay doors opening on the planet's surface, detecting atmospheric fighters, hundreds of them. Danny felt the familiar pull of acceleration as his interceptor launched from the underground hangar. Around him, 40 other fighters did the same. They burst from camouflaged openings in the mountains and hills around Harbor Point, their engines screaming as they climbed toward space. Blue Squadron, form up on me, Danny said into his radio. Stay tight and watch your scans. Let's show these lizards how humans fly. The Mark 7 interceptor was an old design, but it was still deadly. Danny's ship could accelerate to speeds that would tear apart most alien vessels. It could turn on a credit chip, and its weapons were brutally simple and effective. The Zethrak fighters moved to intercept. They were big, heavily armored, and carried impressive weapons. They were also slow. Compared to human fighters, they moved like rocks. Danny lined up his first target and fired. The kinetic cannon sent a stream of projectiles at a significant fraction of light speed. They punched through the Zethrak fighters' shields like they weren't even there. The alien ship exploded. Splash 1, Danny called out. These guys are barely moving. It's like shooting targets at the practice range. Around him, other human pilots were having similar success. The Zethrak had numbers, but the humans had speed, skill, and weapons designed for actual combat. It wasn't a fair fight. It was a slaughter. Zarthok watched his fighter screen disappear in minutes. All ships, emergency jump. Get us out of here now. Sir, we can't jump yet. Our engines need time to charge. We're under heavy fire. The Admiral looked at his tactical display. Red icons representing his ships were winking out one by one. The human defense platforms were firing long-range weapons now. Beams of coherent energy and streams of projectiles ripped through his fleet. Ships that had survived dozens of battles were dying like insects. Concentrate all fire on those platforms. Destroy them. The Zthrek fleet opened up with everything they had. Thousands of weapons fired at once. The humans' response was simple. The defense platform's shields held. Every single shot was either blocked or absorbed. Then the platforms returned fire. Danny watched from his cockpit as a Zethrak cruiser took a direct hit from a platform's main gun. The ship simply ceased to exist. One moment it was there. The next, it was an expanding cloud of debris. Control, this is Blue Leader. The enemy fleet is breaking up. They're trying to run. Acknowledged, Blue Leader, came the response from Harbor Point. Continue pursuit. Disable their engines if possible. We want prisoners and intel. The battle lasted 20 minutes total. When it was over, the Zethrak fleet had been destroyed or captured. 200 ships were gone. The rest surrendered. Human casualties, 0. Not a single fighter lost. Not a single pilot injured. The defense platforms hadn't even dropped below 90% shield strength. Danny landed his interceptor back in the underground hangar. His hands were steady on the controls. This was what humans did. This was what they had always done, long before they found peace. They were good at it. Rachel met him as he climbed out of his cockpit. Good flying, Lieutenant. Clean kills, no wasted ammunition. Your ancestors would be proud. Danny looked up at the hangar ceiling, thinking about the surface above. Captain, do you think they understand now? The Zethrak, I mean. Do they understand what they started? Rachel shook her head. Not yet, but they will. New Hope was just one colony. We have 11 more just like it. The Zethrak wanted a war. Now they're going to get one. And they're going to learn what every human already knows. What's that, sir? That peace isn't weakness. Peace is what you choose when you're strong enough to destroy your enemies but wise enough not to. The Zethrak mistook our choice for inability. That was their first mistake. Let's make sure it's their last. The Galactic Council chamber was in chaos. Representatives from 40 different species shouted at each other, their translation devices creating a cacophony of overlapping voices. At the center of it all sat Ambassador Helen Carter, the human representative, calm and quiet as always. Council Speaker Mordan, a being of pure energy contained within a floating crystal structure, raised its voice. The chamber fell silent. Order. We will have order in this council. The speaker's voice echoed with authority. Ambassador Carter, please approach the speaking platform. Helen stood and walked to the center of the chamber. She had been Earth's ambassador for 70 years. In all that time, she had spoken maybe a dozen times. Humans didn't make speeches. They didn't argue. They simply voted when required and went home. Most species had forgotten humans were even part of the council. Not anymore. Ambassador Carter, Morden began, we have received disturbing reports from the Zethrak Dominion. They claim that humanity destroyed an entire battle fleet at New Hope Colony, 300 ships. They claim not a single human vessel was lost. They claim your species possesses military capabilities far beyond anything registered with this council. Explain. Helen looked around the chamber. Some species looked angry. Others looked afraid. The Zethrak representative, a replacement for the disgraced Admiral Zarthok, looked humiliated. She took a breath and smiled. It was the first time she had smiled in the council chamber in 70 years. We told you, she said simply. When humanity joined this council 3,000 years ago, we told you exactly what we were. You just didn't believe us. She activated a holographic display. Images filled the air above the chamber floor. Ancient images from Earth's history. Battles, wars, weapons, soldiers fighting across continents, then across planets, then across solar systems. This is the Battle of Earth, Helen explained, highlighting one particular image. It happened 4,000 years ago when humanity made first contact with an alien species. They came to conquer us, we won. This is the siege of Mars, where humans fought other humans for control of the solar system. This is the colonial wars, where we learned to fight in zero gravity and across vast distances. More images appeared. Weapons of incredible power. Ships designed purely for combat. Defensive structures that could withstand planetary bombardment. The council representatives watched in growing horror. By the time we developed faster-than-light travel, Helen continued, humanity had been fighting wars for 10,000 years. We were good at it, very good. We had weapons that could sterilize planets. Ships that could crack moons. We had turned warfare into a science. Rick Palmer, Helen's technical advisor, stepped forward. He brought up new images. Every human colony world has defensive platforms. We build them when we settle the planet. They're part of the basic infrastructure like power plants or water systems. We hide them, usually underwater or underground, but they're always there. He zoomed in on New Hope. These platforms use technology that's 3,000 years old by our standards. We haven't updated them because we haven't needed to. They still work perfectly. Each platform has enough firepower to fight off a fleet. Each colony has between 50 and 100 platforms. The chamber was silent now. Representatives who had barely noticed humanity for 3 millennia were seeing them clearly for the first time. Helen continued. Our civilian ships aren't civilian. They're decommissioned military vessels. We removed the obvious weapons, painted them with cargo colors, and used them for trade and transport. But the basic structure is still military grade. The engines are still military grade. In an emergency, we can reactivate their weapon systems in about an hour. Every human learns combat skills, Rick added. It's part of our education system. Children learn mathematics by calculating trajectories. They learn physics by understanding weapon systems. They learn history by studying famous battles. We call it cultural education. The rest of the galaxy thought we were teaching art classes. We do teach art, Helen said with a slight smile. We teach music and literature and philosophy. We love those things. But we also teach our children how to survive. How to fight. How to win. Because 3,000 years ago we decided we wanted peace. Real peace. Not the kind of peace you get from being weak and hoping no one attacks you. The kind of peace you get from being so strong that no one dares. Council Speaker Morden's crystal form pulsed with agitation. You deceived us. You allowed us to believe you were a minor species with no military capability. No, Helen said firmly. We never lied. We submitted our colony locations. We followed all council regulations. We participated in votes. We just didn't brag about our capabilities. We didn't need to. We came to this council hoping to find peace. We wanted to stop fighting. We'd been fighting for so long that we were tired of it. She walked around the chamber, making eye contact with as many representatives as possible. Do you know what it's like to be good at something terrible? Humanity mastered warfare. We perfected it. And then we looked at what we'd become and we didn't like it. So we made a choice. We chose to be peaceful. We chose to be quiet. We chose to let other species take the spotlight while we lived simple lives on our simple colonies. An ambassador from the Viridian Collective, a species known for their pacifism, spoke up. But you maintained your weapons. You kept your military systems active. Of course we did, Helen replied. We're not stupid. We're peaceful, not naive. We know the galaxy isn't safe. We know there are aggressive species out there. So we prepared. We taught our children. We maintained our defenses. We hoped we'd never need them again. We really did hope that. The Zethrak representative finally spoke. His voice was bitter. You let us attack you. You could have warned us. You could have shown us your strength and prevented the war. Helen turned to face him directly. Would you have believed us? If we had simply told you we were dangerous, would you have backed down? Or would you have seen it as a challenge? The Zethrak said nothing. They both knew the answer. You attacked us because you thought we were weak, Helen said. You saw 3,000 years of peace and assumed we had forgotten how to fight. You were wrong. We never forgot. We just chose not to fight. There's a difference. Council Speaker Mordaunt spoke again. What does humanity want now? You have revealed your true strength. You have defeated a major military power with ease. What are your intentions? Helen smiled again, but this time it was warmer. The same thing we've always wanted. Peace. We want to go back to our colonies and live quiet lives. We want to farm our land and raise our children and explore the stars without worrying about war. That's all we've ever wanted. But if someone attacks us again, Rick added, we'll defend ourselves, just like we did at New Hope. Just like we'll do at any of our worlds. We're not looking for conquest. We're not looking for revenge. But we won't be victims either. This council has maintained peace for 3,000 years, Helen said to the assembled representatives. We'd like to keep it that way. But peace requires strength. It requires everyone to know that attacking your neighbors has consequences. The Zethrak learned that lesson. We hope no one else needs to. She deactivated the holographic display. Humanity will continue as a member of this council. We'll continue to be quiet and peaceful. We'll continue to live on our 12 worlds and mind our own business. But now you know the truth. Now you understand what you're looking at when you see a human colony. We're not weak. We never were. We just chose to be kind instead. The chamber remained silent for a long moment. Then slowly, the Viridian ambassador began to speak. I believe humanity has taught this council an important lesson. True peace comes not from weakness but from strength tempered by wisdom. Perhaps we should all learn from their example. Other species murmured agreement. Not all of them. Some were still afraid. Some were angry. But most understood. The galaxy had just learned that the quiet species in the corner, the ones who never caused trouble and never made demands, were actually the most dangerous species in the council. And they had chosen peace anyway. That was worth respecting. The Zethrak Dominion refused to accept defeat. Their pride wouldn't allow it. 3 days after the disaster at New Hope, the Dominion's high command gathered in their war room on the capital world. The mood was dark and angry. War leader Korvan, who had replaced the disgraced Zarthok, addressed the council. We underestimated the humans. That was our mistake. But it was only one battle. One colony. We need allies. The humans have 12 worlds. We need overwhelming force to take them all at once. Who would join us? Asked one of the military advisors. The entire Galactic Council saw what happened at New Hope. They know the humans are dangerous now. Corvin smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. Fear is a powerful motivator. Some species will join us because they're afraid of what humanity might do next. Others will join because they want to be on the winning side. We just need to convince them we can still win. He was right. Within a week, the Korthan Empire had pledged their support. They were a proud warrior race who saw humanity's strength as a challenge worth facing. The Vrex Collective joined next, motivated by territorial disputes with humans over mining rights. 2 smaller species, the Draxian Republic and the Feneth Union, also signed on. Together, the 5 species assembled a fleet unlike anything seen in the galaxy for 2,000 years. 10,000 warships, hundreds of thousands of soldiers. Enough firepower to conquer half the known galaxy. They called themselves the Alliance of 5, and they made no secret of their intentions. Admiral Susan Blake watched their preparations from Earth's orbital command center. Beside her stood General Peter Ross, commander of all human ground forces, and Colonel Amy Stevens, head of strategic operations. 10,000 ships, Peter said, studying the tactical display. That's a lot of firepower. Susan nodded but didn't look worried. It's about what we expected. The Zethrak have a big mouth. We knew they'd convince others to join them. The question is, are we ready? Amy pulled up a status report. All 12 colony worlds are at full defensive readiness. Every platform is active. Every ship is armed. We have about 7,000 combat-capable vessels plus fighters. Ground forces are mobilized on all worlds. We're as ready as we can be. They're going to hit us everywhere at once, Peter observed. They'll try to overwhelm us through numbers. Hit all 12 worlds simultaneously so we can't reinforce each other. Let them, Susan said. Each world can handle itself. We designed our defenses that way. No colony depends on support from Earth or any other world. Every colony is a fortress. They can find that out the hard way. The Alliance of 5 launched their attack 2 weeks after forming. Just as Peter predicted, they divided their forces and attacked all 12 human colonies at once. Each world faced roughly 800 enemy ships. The attackers were confident. 800 against what looked like minimal defenses should be an easy victory. At Freedom's Rest, Captain Kyle Brooks commanded the human defense fleet. He had 6 ships, just 6, against 800 incoming hostiles. His crew thought he should be nervous. He wasn't. Captain, enemy fleet is entering weapons range, his tactical officer reported. Acknowledged. All ships maintain defensive formation around the planet. Let them come to us. Don't fire until they do. The Alliance fleet opened fire first, launching thousands of missiles and energy weapons at the human ships. Kyle's vessels activated their shields and point defense. Most incoming fire was intercepted or blocked. The few hits that landed did minimal damage. Return fire, Kyle ordered calmly. His 6 ships opened up. They weren't really civilian vessels anymore. The weapons that had been hidden for 3,000 years were now fully active. Each ship carried enough firepower to take on 50 enemy vessels. They had been built during humanity's military peak, when humans fought each other across multiple solar systems. They were designed to survive and win against impossible odds. The enemy fleet started taking casualties immediately. Human weapons were precise, powerful, and incredibly efficient, while the Alliance ships threw huge amounts of firepower in all directions hoping to hit something. The human ships made every shot count. Each blast from a human weapon destroyed or crippled an enemy vessel. "Enemy fleet is breaking formation," the tactical officer reported. "They're confused. They expected us to be overwhelmed." Kyle smiled. "They're learning what the Zethrak learned. Numbers don't mean much if your weapons are inferior. Continue firing. Target their command ships first." On the surface of Freedom's Rest, the defense platforms joined the fight. They rose from their hiding places in mountains, forests, and beneath the ice caps. Each platform was a fortress in its own right, with shields that could withstand sustained bombardment and weapons that could reach orbit with perfect accuracy. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it was over, the Alliance fleet at Freedom's Rest was destroyed. 700 ships were gone. The remaining 100 surrendered. Human casualties, 0. Kyle's 6 ships hadn't even lost shields. The pattern repeated at every colony. At New Haven, Commander Lisa Parker led the defense with 8 ships against a force of 900. She won without losing a single vessel. At Prosperity, Captain Danny Foster flew fighter missions that destroyed 3 capital ships by himself. At Liberty Prime, the defense platforms didn't even need ship support. They handled the entire enemy fleet alone. The Alliance of 5 had expected an easy conquest. What they got was a massacre. In one day of fighting, they lost 8,000 ships. Human losses totaled less than 50 vessels, mostly older fighters that took hits while protecting larger ships. No colonies fell. No cities were damaged. The human defense network worked exactly as designed. In the Zethrak war room, Corvin stared at the reports in disbelief. "This is impossible. We had overwhelming numerical superiority. How did we lose everything?" His advisors had no answers. The simple truth was that humanity had spent 10,000 years perfecting warfare before they ever reached the stars. The Alliance species had spent those same years in relative peace, with only occasional small conflicts. Their weapons were designed to look impressive and intimidate enemies. Human weapons were designed to kill efficiently. On Earth, Admiral Susan Blake received the battle reports from all 12 colonies. Every world had held. Every world had won. She felt relief mixed with sadness. Relief that her people were safe. Sadness that it had come to this. "Send a message to the Alliance of 5, she told her communications officer. "Tell them this is over. They attacked us twice now. We've defeated them twice. If they attack again, we won't just defend. We'll take the fight to their homeworlds. We don't want to do that. We really don't, but we will if they force us." General Peter Ross stood beside her. "Do you think they'll listen?" "They'd better. We've proven our point. We're not easy targets. We're not weak. We're just peaceful. But if they can't understand the difference, we'll have to teach them another lesson, a harder one." Colonel Amy Stevens pulled up intelligence reports. "The Alliance is already falling apart. The Korthan Empire is withdrawing their support. They respect strength, and we've shown we're stronger. The Vrex Collective is requesting negotiations. The smaller species are just trying to survive now." "Good," Susan said. "Let them negotiate. Let them talk. That's what we wanted all along. We never wanted this war. We just wanted to be left alone." Across human space, soldiers and pilots were standing down. Defense platforms were powering down their weapons but remaining active and visible. The vacation was over, but maybe the war could end before it got worse. Humanity had proven they could defend themselves. Now they needed to prove they could be merciful. That would be harder. Mercy required more strength than victory. But humans had learned that lesson 3,000 years ago. They had chosen peace once. They could choose it again even after being forced to fight. The question was whether the galaxy would let them. 3 days after the failed invasion, Ambassador Helen Carter returned to the Galactic Council chamber. This time, the atmosphere was completely different. Representatives who had ignored humanity for 3,000 years now watched her every move. Some with respect, some with fear, a few with anger. The chamber was packed. Every species in the council had sent their representatives. Even species that rarely attended were present. Everyone wanted to hear what humanity would say now that they had proven their military might. Council Speaker Mordan called the session to order. "Ambassador Carter, the council recognizes you. You requested this emergency session. Please state your purpose." Helen walked to the speaking platform accompanied by Senator Chris Wagner, the head of Earth's civilian government. Chris was an older man with gray hair and kind eyes. He looked like someone's grandfather, not the leader of the galaxy's most dangerous military power. "Thank you, Speaker," Helen began. "I'll be brief. The war is over. The Alliance of Five attacked us. We defended ourselves. We won. Now it's time to talk about what comes next." She paused, looking around the chamber. "Humanity does not want conquest. We don't want revenge. We don't want to punish anyone. We just want to go back to the way things were. Peaceful, quiet, living our lives without bothering anyone." The Zethrak representative, still bitter from their defeat, spoke up. "You humiliated us. You destroyed our fleets, and now you want us to simply forget that happened?" Chris Wagner stepped forward. "No. We want you to remember it. We want everyone to remember, because that's how peace works. Real peace doesn't come from everyone being weak. It comes from everyone being strong enough to hurt each other but wise enough not to." He activated a holographic display. "Humanity is proposing a new treaty, a real peace treaty. We'll share some of our defensive technology with the Council. Not weapons. We won't give you weapons, but defensive systems, shields, sensors, early warning systems, things that protect lives instead of taking them." Helen continued. "In exchange, we ask that this Council takes peace seriously. The Zethrak attacked us because they thought we were weak. They thought 3,000 years of peace meant we couldn't fight. We've proven that's not true, but we don't want to have to prove it again." She brought up images of the recent battles. "In the past week, we've destroyed nearly 10,000 enemy ships. We could have killed everyone on board. We didn't. We targeted engines and weapon systems when possible. We took prisoners. We provided medical aid to wounded enemy soldiers. Because we're not monsters. We're just people who are very good at defending ourselves." Rick Palmer, Helen's technical advisor, displayed technical specifications. "These are the shield systems we're offering to share. They're older technology by our standards, about 1,000 years old, but they're still more advanced than anything the Council currently has. They can protect cities from orbital bombardment. They can save lives. We're also offering sensor technology," Rick continued. "Better sensors mean better warning when someone's approaching. Better warning means more time to evacuate civilians, more time to negotiate, more time to avoid fighting in the first place." A representative from the Viridian Collective, the pacifist species, spoke. "Why would you share this technology? You've proven you're strong. Why help potential enemies?" Chris answered. "Because we don't want enemies. We want neighbors. We want trading partners. We want to study your cultures and learn from you. We want our children to grow up in a galaxy where they don't have to fight. My grandfather fought in the colonial wars." Chris continued, his voice becoming personal. "He killed people. He watched friends die. He spent 30 years as a soldier. When he finally retired, he told me something I never forgot. He said the hardest part of war isn't the fighting. It's remembering what you were before the fighting started, remembering how to be peaceful again." The chamber was silent, listening. "Humanity spent 10,000 years fighting," Chris said. "We got very good at it. But it changed us. It made us hard, suspicious, aggressive. 3,000 years ago, we decided we didn't like what we'd become. So we chose to change. We chose peace. Not because we were weak, but because we were strong enough to make that choice." Helen took over again. "The Zethrak asked why we didn't warn them. Why we didn't show our strength before they attacked. The answer is simple. If we had shown our weapons, someone would have seen it as a threat. Someone would have built bigger weapons to counter ours. Then we'd have built bigger weapons to counter theirs. It would have started an arms race. That's what always happens when people focus on weapons instead of peace. So we hid our weapons," she continued. "We kept them secret. We hoped we'd never need them. We hoped that 3,000 years of being peaceful would be enough. We were wrong. Someone attacked anyway, but we still don't want an arms race. We still don't want a galaxy full of weapons." Senator Wagner nodded. "That's why we're offering defensive technology only. We want everyone to be able to protect themselves, but we don't want to give anyone weapons they might use to attack others. Defense is different from offense. A shield can't conquer anyone. It can only protect." The Corthan ambassador, representing a species that prided itself on military honor, stood. "The Corthan Empire withdraws from the Alliance of Five. We attacked humanity believing they were weak prey. We were wrong. They are strong warriors who choose peace. That is more honorable than we understood. We accept your offer of defensive technology and pledge not to attack human worlds again." One by one, other species followed. The Vrex Collective accepted. The Viridian Collective accepted enthusiastically. Even some species that hadn't been involved in the war asked to participate in the treaty. Finally, the Zethrak representative stood. He looked tired and defeated. The Zethrak Dominion accepts your terms. We will not attack humanity again. We will work to rebuild the trust we destroyed. Helen smiled warmly. Thank you. That's all we wanted. A chance to live in peace with our neighbors. Council Speaker Mordan pulsed with what might have been approval. The Council will vote on this treaty in 1 week. In the meantime, I believe we should all reflect on what we've learned. Humanity has taught us that peace is not the same as weakness. That lesson is worth remembering. After the session ended, Helen and Chris walked through the Council building's gardens. It was a beautiful place, filled with plants from dozens of worlds. A place built for peace. Do you think it will work? Chris asked. The treaty, I mean. Do you think they'll actually change? Helen considered the question. Some will, some won't, but that's okay. We've made our point. We're not victims. We're not easy targets. Anyone who attacks us now knows what to expect. We could have killed them all, Chris said quietly. The Alliance fleet. We could have destroyed every ship and killed every soldier. Our weapons are that good, I know, but that would have made us conquerors instead of defenders. It would have made us what we used to be, what we chose to stop being. They sat on a bench beneath a tree from Earth, an oak that had been growing there for 100 years. Chris looked up at its branches. My grandfather told me something else. He said the real test of strength isn't how hard you can hit. It's how much mercy you can show after you win. Helen nodded. He was right. We won the war. Now we need to win the peace. That's harder, but it's worth doing. Above them, ships from dozens of species passed through the station's space lanes. Trade ships, science vessels, explorers, all moving peacefully, going about their business. It looked the same as it had a month ago before the war started, but it wasn't the same. The galaxy knew the truth now. The quiet species in the corner, the ones who never caused trouble, were the most dangerous species in known space. And they had chosen peace anyway. That was the real lesson. That was what the galaxy needed to learn. Power without wisdom led to destruction. Wisdom without power led to victimhood. But power combined with wisdom led to peace. Real peace. The kind that lasted. Humanity had learned that lesson 3,000 years ago. Now maybe the rest of the galaxy would learn it too. 6 months had passed since the war ended. On New Hope, Lieutenant Danny Foster sat in a bar overlooking Harbor Point's main harbor. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. The ocean was calm. Fishing boats were returning to port after a day's work. Everything looked normal, peaceful. Lisa Parker slid into the seat across from him carrying 2 drinks. Kevin Hayes joined them a moment later. The 3 of them had served together during the battle, flying interceptors against the Zethrak fleet. Now they were back to their regular jobs. Danny was a flight instructor. Lisa worked at the spaceport managing traffic. Kevin taught engineering at the local university. Did you see the news? Lisa asked. The Council ratified the Defense Treaty. 27 species signed on. They're calling it the Harbor Point Accords. Danny smiled at that. Named after our city. That's nice. We only almost got blown up here. Could have been worse, Kevin said. They could have called it the Zethrak Humiliation Treaty. They laughed, but it was gentle laughter. The war was over. Most of the captured Zethrak soldiers had been returned home. Some had chosen to stay, fascinated by human culture and wanting to learn more. It turned out that when you treated prisoners well and showed them mercy, they sometimes became friends. I saw one of them yesterday, Lisa said, a Zethrak soldier who stayed. He was working at a construction site, helping rebuild a warehouse that got damaged when we raised the defense platforms. He seemed happy. They're not all bad, Danny agreed. They just made a mistake. A big one, but still just a mistake. They thought we were weak. They learned we weren't. Now some of them want to understand why we chose peace in the first place. Through the bar's window, they could see the ocean. Somewhere down there, beneath the waves, the defense platforms were descending back to their rest. They would stay active, their sensors always watching, but their weapons would be powered down, covered in marine life again, hidden, waiting, just in case, but hopefully, they wouldn't be needed for another 3,000 years. On Earth, Admiral Susan Blake walked through the underground command center one last time. Most of the systems were shutting down. The lights were dimming. In a few more days, this place would be sealed again. Empty. Silent. Waiting for an emergency that might never come. General Peter Ross walked beside her. Feels strange, doesn't it? We finally got to use all this equipment for real. Part of me is relieved it's over. Another part is sad to see it go back to sleep. I know what you mean, Susan said. But this is what we wanted, peace, real peace. The kind we have to work to maintain. They reached the main control room. The holographic display of human space was still active, showing all 12 colonies. Green icons marked defensive platforms. Blue icons marked human ships. Everything was quiet, peaceful, safe. The Council wants us to send military advisors, Peter said. Help them train their own defensive forces. They want to learn from us, Susan nodded. That's good. The more species that can defend themselves, the less likely anyone is to start another war. Aggressors pick on weak targets. When everyone's strong, war becomes too expensive. Are we ready for that? Being teachers instead of soldiers? We'd better be. That's the only way this works. We can't protect the whole galaxy. We can barely protect ourselves. But we can teach others how to protect themselves. That's the real gift we can give. Colonel Amy Stevens entered the room carrying a datapad. Admiral, final casualty report. Total human losses from the war. 47 ships destroyed. 233 personnel killed. 512 wounded. The number hung in the air. Each one represented a life. A person with family and friends and dreams. Susan felt the weight of those deaths. They had won the war with minimal casualties by any military standard. But even one death was one too many. Make sure their families are taken care of, Susan said quietly. Full benefits. Education funds for their children. Everything we can do. Already done, Admiral. The Council also wants to honor them. They're proposing a memorial at the Council headquarters for all the people who died in the war, human and alien both. Susan appreciated that. That's good. War should be remembered. The costs should be remembered. So we don't do it again unless we absolutely have to. Across the galaxy, other humans were returning to their normal lives. Soldiers became farmers again. Pilots became teachers. Engineers went back to building bridges instead of weapons. The transition wasn't always easy. Some people had trouble letting go of the adrenaline, the purpose that war had given them. But humanity had dealt with that before. They had counselors and support groups. They knew how to help soldiers become civilians again. On Freedom's Rest, Captain Kyle Brooks planted a tree. It was an earth oak, like the one growing in the council gardens. Around him, other veterans were doing the same. They were creating a memorial garden for the people who had died defending their world. Each tree represented a life. The garden would grow and flourish, a living reminder of the cost of peace. My son asked me yesterday if we'll have to fight again, Kyle said to the woman planting a tree beside him. Her name was Sophie Wells, one of the pilots who had flown in the battle. I didn't know what to tell him. Tell him the truth, Sophie suggested. That we hope not. That we'll do everything we can to prevent it, but that we'll be ready if it happens. That's not very comforting. No, but it's honest. Kids deserve honesty. We can't promise them a galaxy without danger. We can only promise we'll do our best to keep them safe. Kyle finished planting his tree and stood back. It was small now, just a sapling, but in 100 years it would be tall and strong. His son might bring his own children here someday to show them the garden and tell them the story. About how humanity fought a war they didn't want and won it with minimal bloodshed. About how they chose mercy over revenge. That was worth remembering. Ambassador Helen Carter retired 6 months after the war ended. She had served for 70 years and she was tired. Her replacement was a younger woman named Patricia Moore, who had spent the war coordinating humanitarian aid to wounded soldiers on both sides. On Helen's last day, the Galactic Council held a ceremony in her honor. Representatives from every species attended. Even the Zethrex sent a delegation, led by their new ambassador. Ambassador Carter, Council Speaker Morden said, "You have served this council with dedication and wisdom for 7 decades. You kept humanity's secrets when revealing them might have prevented war." Some criticize that choice. But looking back, we understand. If humanity had revealed their strength earlier, it might have started an arms race. By remaining quiet, you preserved peace for 3,000 years. Only when attacked did humanity reveal the truth. That showed remarkable restraint. Helen stood before the council one last time. I appreciate your words, Speaker. But I didn't keep humanity's secrets alone. Every human who served on our colonies, every pilot who trained in secret, every engineer who maintained systems they hoped would never be used, they all kept the secret. They all chose peace even when it would have been easier to show off our strength. She looked around the chamber. I'm leaving this position, but I'm not leaving the council. I'll still be here, sitting in the public galleries watching and listening, because I believe in what this council represents. The idea that different species can live together peacefully, that we can trade and learn from each other instead of fighting, that's worth preserving. And if someone attacks us again? The Zethrak ambassador asked. The question wasn't hostile. It was genuine curiosity. Helen smiled. Then humanity will defend itself. Just like before. We won't seek revenge. We won't conquer. We'll simply protect what's ours, and then we'll try to make peace again. That's who we are. That's who we've chosen to be. The ceremony ended. Helen walked out of the council chamber into the station's gardens. Senator Chris Wagner was waiting for her, sitting on their usual bench beneath the oak tree. It's done, Helen said, sitting beside him. I'm officially retired. How does it feel? Strange. I've been Ambassador Carter for so long I almost forgot how to be just Helen, but I'll figure it out. They sat in comfortable silence, watching other species walk through the gardens. A Zethrak and a human were talking together, laughing about something. A Korthan was teaching a group of children, human and alien both, about honor and warfare. A Viridian was tending to the plants, making sure everything grew healthy and strong. Do you think it will last? Chris asked. The peace? Helen considered the question carefully. For a while. Maybe a long while. We've taught the galaxy an important lesson, but lessons get forgotten. In a few hundred years, maybe 1,000, someone will forget. Someone will test us again, and we'll have to defend ourselves again. And then what? And then we'll try to make peace again. Because that's what humans do. We fight when we have to. We win when we fight. But we always try to come back to peace. It's harder than fighting. It takes more strength. But it's worth it. Above them, ships passed peacefully through space. Trade continuing, science being shared, cultures mixing. The galaxy turning, oblivious to how close it had come to a much darker future. A future where humanity chose conquest instead of defense. Revenge instead of mercy. They hadn't chosen that path. They had chosen peace. Again. Just like they did 3,000 years ago. And if the